Hey everyone, Burt Lo, and besides volunteering for SandCamp and working with Sage Tree Solutions right now, where I'm doing some project management, I am also tomorrow, which is why I'm not going to be here. Tomorrow I'm going to get my last class to become a life coach. Why am I becoming a life coach? Because much of my life was painful and confusing, and I'm hoping that I can help some people get through some things in life a little bit easier. Why did I want to present it here? Because I think, well, every time that I pitch this idea to my friends, where I say, I want to present emotional development for techies, they go, oh, that's a great idea. I don't know if they're just humoring me, or if they believe, like I do, that a lot of times techies are very intellectual. And not to say that they're deficient emotionally, but a lot of times, for me, I'll use my story. When I was very much into programming, and when I was younger, I just focused on being as smart and as productive and as analytic and clever and intellectual as I could be. But I had a hard time feeling comfortable in my own skin. I had a hard time relating to people on an emotional level. What I've come to find now, after some very deliberate work at building up my emotional maturity and skill set, is that I have all the abilities of being very intellectual. And I have all of my facilities of being very creative. And I also have all of this emotional ability as well. And so now, in my most current positions of professional roles, I'm acting as a project manager. I am helping with the communication to both sides of a project, the technology end of things, and also the client end of things, they're not supposed to know technology. They're supposed to be creative and experts in their field of study or passion or whatever it is. And so I'm doing my very best to kind of bridge that gap between the two worlds, for lack of a better term. But in the largest sense, what I think is on an individual level, and the reason that I call it emotional fitness is that I find that conditioning, physical fitness, is a really great analogy for emotional development. In the same way that people can work out really well and sometimes work out really poorly, the same thing can happen with emotions. I believe that a competent and a fit athlete is somebody that is strong and flexible and has endurance and has agility and they have a lot of capabilities. They have a lot of capacity in a physical ability sense. For me, I could not use that analogy for my emotional self before. I was kind of stunted. I was really good at being happy, but I couldn't handle being sad. I couldn't handle being afraid or ashamed or embarrassed. Boy, that was the worst. And for me, that turned into a lot of really destructive and dysfunctional behaviors, which I won't go into here, but if you want to talk about that offline, I'm happy to share what I went through. So, fitness, what I've been doing since is I've become much stronger in my capacity to handle all types of emotions. I've become much more resilient, so I can handle going from one emotion to another and not feel like I can't handle it. I have endurance. I can deal with grief and sadness for extended periods of time, and I know how to get out of it. I know well enough that I can deal with these emotions and then come back to a state of being okay and at peace. So, Maybe if you don't have these, maybe you recognize this in some of your teammates or your friends, some of these problems that might come up from underdeveloped emotional maturity. Do people have difficulty communicating with others? Do you ever get to a place where you just can't talk anymore? You just can't talk to this person anymore. There's just no getting around it. So you give up and you walk away and you maybe even let go of that relationship sometimes. Confused by other points of views, or feeling clumsy, insecure, and inadequate. Boy, that was the story of my life when I was younger. As a teenager and as a young adult, I was terribly insecure, terribly embarrassed. Standing up in front of you and talking about something, standing up in front of you to start with, even if I were talking about something programming-wise, couldn't do it. Now I can talk about anything. Relationships seem flat. I mean, do you get into this habitual groove with your friends or your family or your partners, and you just kind of do the same thing? And you know, is that really all that you're going to do with your life together? Really? Is that it? The pain from an active. So part of what I want to do in this presentation is I want to describe this to you and break it down so that it's easy for you to articulate and intellectualize in your mind. We're going to get this to where this is broken down into an academic problem. And as I was talking earlier, we're gonna break this into a very simple algorithm, which was really my hook to get you techies. I'll be honest about it. But the pain really comes down to you get into dysfunctional thinking, behavior, lifestyles, immaturity, overly intellectual, compromising values. This is the definition of losing integrity. If you or anybody that you know wants to live a life of integrity, live an authentic life, that means that you're not having to compromise your values. You're not having to do something that you don't agree with. It just doesn't feel right. And if you can imagine just for a second, going through life, just knowing that all of your actions and all of your choices are in line with what you believe to be right, can you imagine how good that feels? I mean, that's a lot of freedom, a lot of liberation, and excitement, I think. So the solution, as I've described it, is emotional fitness. Everybody starts out with skills or talents. These are the things that you're born with. Some of us are just naturally talented at being intellectual. We can solve problems like that, and other people cannot. Other people are talented in other ways. Some people have physical abilities. Some people have psychic abilities, though I have a hard time really understanding it. Some people are very artistic. And then there are skills. These are things that we can develop over time. I can actually go to school and practice and actually start drawing something if that's what I put my energy towards. Even though I might not have started out with innate talent coming out of, as a child. Training, that's the education part. We can go to school. We can learn how to program. Very easy. We can go to school, we can learn art history, and we can become masters at art history. We can learn whatever. There are so many things, and with all of the opportunities available online, with free education, it's amazing what we have, what opportunities we have now. And then practice. So there is oh gosh, I wish I had remembered the book. 10,000 hours of practice is kind of the de facto number, the amount of time that it takes for a person to become or achieve expertise in whatever it is that they're doing. So you might start out with skills and talent, you might get some proper training or education, but then it's going to take practice. You're going to have to keep going at it until things become second nature. Now, it's not necessary to become an expert at everything. I mean, we're limited in the amount of time we have in a lifetime, so hopefully we can choose something and really pursue that to become an expert at that one or two things in a lifetime. But even if we don't achieve 10,000 hours in something, we can still be very competent. We can still be very productive and use those abilities. So here's the working algorithm. This was presented to me as a method by Michelle Downey I'll tell you all about her at some point. She is an amazing person here in the San Diego area, and she's been teaching this for many, many years. She refers to this as the GATE method, and I'll break it down. These are very simple steps, and we can rinse and repeat. What just happened? So the narrative goes like this. I'm in a situation with having a discussion with somebody, and we might have gotten into a disagreement. So the narrative is this: what just happened? When you said that you didn't like the way my code worked, that's what just happened. When I heard you say that you didn't like the way my code worked, what do I feel is the next step? I felt really angry. What am I thinking? Because my thought was, you didn't know what you were talking about, and you just called me stupid. When I heard you say that my code wasn't working, I felt angry because I thought you were stupid, and I thought you were calling me stupid. Or I thought you were saying I didn't know what I was doing. So, here's how we're breaking this down. What just happened? This person in front of me just gave me their opinion, their experience, their feedback on a piece of code that I wrote. And I heard them say, this piece of code isn't working. This doesn't do what I want it to do. Okay. What just happened, it means that I have this opportunity to double check what this person said. Are they saying that the whole thing is just a piece of crap? Are they saying that this button doesn't look the way I want it to? Are they saying that when I click the button, it doesn't do what I want it to do? Are they saying, I just got in a fight with my husband, and it doesn't matter what this thing does, I'm just going to be angry about it anyway? I have a chance to double check my perception and make sure that I hear what this person is expressing very, very clearly. Does that make sense? Cool? How many people have ever experienced a miscommunication or misunderstanding because you thought they were saying something and it turned out later that you just misunderstood, right? Okay, so here's this first opportunity to just take a breath, take an extra few moments, and just double check and say, did I hear you right? Do I really understand what you're trying to tell me? So that's just what happened. What do I feel? This was one of the first parts that I had no clue with. Like I told you before, I can feel happy, but I was really, really reluctant to feel sad or angry or ashamed or embarrassed. I got so used to not having some of those feelings that I just completely shut them off. I just shut down emotionally, and I would just kind of go off in a different direction. I wouldn't even answer you. So what do I feel? Do I feel? I'll tell you this. Here's the easy thing. Out of all the different emotions you might have, they kind of break down to one of three: happy, sad, or mad. Pretty much every emotion that you might feel is going to be based on one of those three. So for me, when I started learning how to become more emotionally fit, I had to just simply say, am I feeling more happy or more sad? And if it's neither one of those two, am I feeling angry? And for a while, I had a hard time telling. But eventually I got much better, and now I can tell that I'm confused, or I'm disappointed, or I'm frustrated, or I'm ecstatic, or, all the different emotional words that we have. So it gives me a chance to check and see, how do I feel? And the last thing is, what am I thinking? How many people can imagine having a feeling of fear for two different reasons? One is because somebody is coming at you with an angry scowl, and the other is that you remember being hit in 6th grade on the playground. You see, there's a big difference. One is happening right in front of me, and the other is happening way in my history, and I can still feel the same hurt or anger. Does that make sense? Right? It has everything to do with what we're thinking, our thoughts. can be tied to our feelings. So this gate method gives everyone a chance to deal with what's real in front of them. We can double check our perceptions to see if we're really seeing what's going on in front of us. We can double check how we're feeling, and then we can double check and see, am I bringing on any of my emotion, or any of my baggage, any of my past, any of my thoughts from before, or am I dealing with what's in front of me right now? If you follow this gate method, you are absolutely guaranteed to have the most authentic communication you can have with any single person. It's as simple as that. And you can do this over and over and over. And at first, when I was learning this, it was kind of clumsy. It was kind of methodical. But eventually, I got to where I could do it much faster, and I could use different words, and I could mix things up. But if I didn't double check myself with these three parts, there were times that I would go off and be angry about something that wasn't really happening, or like I said before, totally misunderstand a person, what they're trying to communicate to me. And they'd be frustrated because I didn't understand them, and I'd be frustrated because they weren't communicating clearly. It's terribly, terribly inefficient, for lack of a better word. So, like I was saying, the underlying principles. We double check our perceptions. Are we seeing the world clearly? We double check our feelings for accuracy. Oh, feelings occur 100% of the time. This was a great, great realization for me. We are biological beings. Our feelings come from our bodies having a physical reaction or a response to what we're perceiving in the world. I used to not believe this. I used to believe that I could choose what I felt. And I don't believe that's actually true. You might be able to find some other people that believe otherwise, but I don't believe that's true. I believe that 100% of the time, if something occurs in my world, I'm going to have an emotional response. My job is to use the gate method. Make sure that I see the world clearly, check in to see how I'm feeling, and then respond to it based on reality. So the benefits. We are, like I said, thinking animals. We're thinking animals. Just because we are biologic and we're going to have these emotional responses doesn't mean that we're going to be bound by just being emotional all the time. That's irresponsible. That's kind of crazy, and it doesn't sound like a lot of fun because I'd probably be running around crazily, doing some really, really nutty things. But what I've seen, not only in my life, I'm kind of on this trajectory where my life is getting better and better, but for the people that I've seen that have mastered becoming emotionally fit, they can become fully aware. They're really in touch with what's going on, not just in their immediate vicinity, but even beyond. They can be more in tune with more of what's going on in the world, with their family, with their friends, with their community. It's possible to become very, very aware. We can become fully liberated, where by liberation I mean we're not stuck by these unconscious or these habitual thoughts. Can anybody relate to doing the same thing over and over because of something that happened in your past? That makes sense? Yeah? Got a couple nods. Like a classic example is getting bullied in school or getting embarrassed in school. And then living for years and years and years thinking that you're bound to get embarrassed again. And so you keep avoiding situations. That make sense? So we can live free of that stuff because the bullying happened back when we were in 6th grade. It's not happening today. We're not even at the same playground. We're totally different people. We're like years and years older. That person's probably often gone working at a gas station or something. I don't know. Not that there's anything wrong with it. By having all of these things going on, we can be fully responsible. That means that we know what is within our realm of responsibility. We can deal with our choices much more clearly. We don't have to be responding to other people's responsibilities. And we can be fully alive. This sounds kind of, when I'm looking at this now, I'm going to need all these big letters. This sounds kind of hokey, but I've seen a number of people who are so smart. They are brilliant, brilliant people. But they're stuck because they're afraid of stepping out in the world. Because they're afraid of feeling hurt again. They give up on that notion because they tried it before and it didn't go well, or it was kind of difficult to make friends, or it's hard to find a boyfriend or a girlfriend, things like that. The missing component is that they just need to build up on their emotional self. That might be the part of them that's a little underdeveloped. This is not one-sided. There are some people who can be really emotionally well-developed who are very simplistic in their thinking. That makes sense, right? There can be people that are really emotionally developed and intellectually developed, but they couldn't run 50 yards without falling over. So there's a mind, body, spirit. There's all these different parts of ourselves. This is just one of them that we can develop. Team and structure. For me, when I was feeling really lost and discouraged and alone, I had a hard time believing that I could find friends. But it turned out to be a lot easier than I thought. The people are out there that are willing and able to help. I just had to find it. I had to ask for help. That was a big, big part. Find people you can relate to. There are so many different meetup groups where you can find a person that has similar interests, similar thoughts, similar passions. You can talk to them, and it's easier to make a bond. So find some common ground. Find people that are willing and able to help. Even if I find some people that might be really interested in, one of my passions is ultimate frisbee. So I might find a bunch of people that play ultimate frisbee, but some of them might not be very emotionally well developed. Okay, so I have to be careful about who I'm choosing to hang out with. Mutual trust and mutual respect. It would be harmful to me if I were overly trusting to somebody and they weren't trustworthy. If they didn't trust me, right? The same thing with respect. Even if I trust somebody but I don't have respect for them, I think they're like stupid or less than, or I'm better than them, that's not going to really go very far. And it's not going to go far either if it comes the other way around. The potential outcomes. One of the things that, some of these are things that I have experienced myself. I'm just talking from my experience. Children. I had a child before I built up my emotional development. And she's doing great. But my experience of being a father was very different than the experience I have being a father now. My child is now 12, and my life being a father is just worlds different, worlds better. I have so much more that I can give her. I have so much more than I can receive because I've done the work to build up my emotional fitness. All of my relationships now, I can have very, very satisfying relationships. Prior to that, some lovely, lovely people that I've had in my life, but I just didn't have as much to give because I was always avoiding things that were scary. I was always avoiding things that might be embarrassing. It was hard for me to talk to somebody when I was feeling a little low. So it was hard for me to ask for help. You can live a life free from drama. I don't know. I can't really find much enjoyment out of watching reality TV. It seems really comical to me. It's like a cartoon because the drama in those is so extreme. It's so distorted. it's so far from what I've come to see as being real, authentic, vulnerability, honesty, respect, advancement. I'm finding that in many ways my life is just progressing in ways that I could not have imagined. And I keep talking about me because it's my own personal experience, like you said. But when I do say that, there are many, many people that I personally know that have been experiencing these same benefits. Personal responsibility, freedom and liberation, like I was talking before. I want to kind of like put that in parentheses because it's like so vast and so, there's so much potential to those that it's hard to even put in a bullet point. So how do we start? This is a really simple thing. HOW, how? Start with honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. Really 3 simple ingredients, and these will carry you very, very far into having an authentic life for yourself and into having authentic relationships with people in front of you. No, summary, call to action. Are you looking for some self-improvement? Have you gotten your master's degree and your PhD? Have you gotten your 6-figure income? You're looking for some other part of your life that you want to work on? Maybe you can become, more emotionally developed. In fact, I mean, really. So, when's the last time that anybody went to school for emotions? Sesame Street? Elmo does a great job of teaching about some emotions. Anywhere else? Anybody ever take a class in high school that had to do with emotional development? College?
Back about 10 or 15 years ago, I worked for IBM.
Yeah.
They sponsored like personal development courses, one called Emotional Smarts.
Nice.
And so it's based on like, I can't remember the name of it. I had read it at the time where there was different types of intelligences, and one of them was emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And so
He wrote a book. There was a book. There was a book entitled Emotional Intelligence.
Right. So, I mean, in order to be a team player, in order to deal with people as you're working on projects, emotional skills are just as important as technical skills.
Yeah.
And so, IBM as a company, a lot of the big companies at the time when that book came out, were trying to get their staff to understand those types of things because it's like interpersonal relationships on a team that really help get things done.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Wow, that's a great experience. Did you actually take the course?
Yeah.
Cool.
Great.
You liked it, yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
But I mean, it's kind of fallen out of favor, I guess. It's maybe a fad at the time, but I think that team building and community building, that's what I like about Drupal, is that it's a community building organization.
Right.
And so this kind of thing applies a lot to an individual.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can take a lot of these principles and sort of apply them on a broader level to respect within the community
Right.
and development
Right.
within the community. And I'd encourage you to sort of take your personal message that you've been giving now and sort of roll that out to the broader Drupal community, because a lot of what they're talking about in the Drupal community setting is exactly what you're talking about on the personal level.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense to me. And thank you for the encouragement. I appreciate that. And your story as well. It's really, really, I'm glad that you had that experience. Because, I mean, as a response to my question, has anybody else had another class, another course in emotional development besides this and Elmo? So I think that there's
Not so much a class, but I've sort of hired a life coach myself to help with that, with the communication and the
Right.
emotional development, and that's been very helpful.
Cool. Very cool. Very cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. What you're saying, though, to bring it out to the community. I agree with you. And one of the reasons that I'm so passionate about this is because going back has everything to do with personal responsibility. I can't make another person act or feel a certain way, right? I can only manage and control my own choices. Everything that I've been talking about has everything to do with what's within my realm of responsibility, within my control. And really the most effective contribution I can make to any community is to make sure that my side of the street is clean, make sure that I'm managing my emotions and my decisions in the most responsible way. And when I put that forth into the community, and I'm doing that with integrity, right? I'm not compromising my values, and I'm doing it in the most authentic manner that I can. That is as clear and as pure a contribution that I can make to a community, and hopefully it can be received. And I mean, does anybody, do each of you have a relationship that you know in your life, maybe not your own, maybe it's your parents or an uncle or some partnership, it could even be a business partnership, whatever, where you see two or more people working really, really well together. They communicate clearly, they understand each other, they respect each other, right? You know what I'm saying? Can you see how great what they produce can be? Do you understand what I'm saying? It's so much more than just one person can do. So it does take this collaboration, it does take this community. But my point being that, my point being that the most that I have control over is me. It's my perception. Just going back to the gate method, my perceptions, my acknowledgement of emotion, what I'm feeling, and what am I thinking behind it. Those are all within my mind. And then the last thing after that is the choice. What do I choose to do from that position of clarity? If I do that, then I think that's a big contribution to the community. And if we have a couple other people doing that, this can just grow and grow and grow. Can you? I don't know. I've heard of various stories here and there of some drama going on in the Drupal community. I don't know all the details. I'm not really seeking that kind of stuff out. But can you imagine how much more productive we could be without that drama? How distracting that is? How damaging it can be? You know, some hurtful words or the loss of productivity. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Like, I think it would be terribly irresponsible of me to say something to a member in the community that would be discouraging, and have that person say, "I don't want to be a part of that community," if that person is involved. Can you imagine how destructive that is? And why would I do that? Why would I ever have to say something hurtful to another person? I think it's only because of something that I might be going on to. It might be just my own issues. But, anyway, kind of digressing. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Actually, this isn't a question, it's just a contribution. I guess we're in a community where we get to participate.
Absolutely.
Last year at SandCamp, this was Berkeley. I'm a project manager.
Yes.
And one of the things that happens with technical people is that it's inevitable that you'll wind up dealing with clients or some stakeholder on a project that you may not normally interface with.
Yeah.
And I think what you're talking about is exactly spot on, because technical people it's easier for technical people to communicate to other technical people.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you start communicating to an administrative personality type, or one of these political type of people, a sales-oriented kind of person, and they're not able to hear the dialogue. So you could say, well, okay, I'm editing this line of PHP code, doesn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you communicate that to some person, it'll be the same information. It's just a matter of how you kind of package it in a way.
Right.
So what you're talking about, I'm dealing with right now. Sometimes what happens is in the first parts of those that process that you had, the gate method, if somebody starts going sideways, sometimes the best thing I would do as a project manager is not react. Give somebody else their space and realize, you know what, if you do what they say you're going to do, you're going to dig a hole for them, or they're going to have a hole, on their side.
Yeah.
So maybe as an intermediary, I don't necessarily have to buy into that.
Yeah.
If I've got a well-worn path and I've paid my dues around some of these issues, I understand maybe some of those flags.
Yeah.
So when we get into these situations where something is put on us, let's say let's say it's 11 o'clock at night and somebody is frustrated and they say, oh, just send the client that communication. I think what you're talking about is, right on.
Yeah.
You've got to be really careful not to trigger somebody's misinterpretation of communication.
Right. I agree. If I were the techie in that situation, and I was carefree, careless about the wording of my message to them, that would be my responsibility, right? That would be the thing that was absolutely in my control. Now, I might not have at that moment, I might not have had the skill or the knowledge to write a better letter, but that's exactly why I am, as you said, that's why I'm encouraging people to develop that part of themselves. Even the techies, even though they might not find themselves in that situation very often. Rich, yeah?
I was just going to mention, with being in the technical field and so many options to communicate, there's the phone, there's IM, now we have video. The closer that you can get to face-to-face, it would be the better. I remember you said this one time, actually it wasn't my client, it was just their IT guy. And I get these emails and I'm so mad. It's like, oh man, it's going to be so much work and complaining that I didn't, really bad job. And then, it's like, I'm going to call him. And then I just talk to him, he's really okay, oh, we just want this. Like, oh, that's it.
Yeah.
And then, so if anything ever, you find yourself getting steamed at something, I just really encourage everybody to, either give them a call on the phone or maybe face-to-face. Because there's a lot that's communicated just by voice inflections.
Absolutely.
That can diffuse or, smooth over the situation.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a really great point as far as communication. It is the most. Going back to the point, we're animals. When we deal with people with direct contact, direct experience, without any electronic communication in between, we have the most clear communication possible. So yeah, face-to-face is great. Any other questions? I was remembering this one.
I have a question about the game method.
Yeah.
Where you kind of take a step back and think about what just happened, what you feel, being over and people. What's that going to lead to? I mean, at some point, there's a response to that. What am I going to do about that?
You're right. Yeah, there is. Okay, so the rinse and repeat doesn't have to happen until you actually take action. If you go through the gate method one, and you find some clarity with your perception, your feeling, and your thinking right in this moment, make a choice, make a decision, take action, go ahead. You can respond from that point, but at least you're responding from the best information possible. It's like the cleanest inputs possible into your function bucket. As far as what's your output going to be? What's your decision going to be? Is it going to be based on some fantasy or some bad memory in the past, or is it going to be based on what's happening right now? Is it going to be based on the feeling that I'm having in this moment, or the fear that I think is coming up because of some other weirdness? Right? It's really just trying to be as clear as possible in this moment in order to make the best choice possible. Does that answer your question? Cool. Anybody ever train a puppy? Train a puppy, right? Yeah? Okay. I hadn't trained a puppy. I adopted a dog. He was 2. And he had this habit of going to the bathroom indoors. And I tried, I'm not a violent guy. I was trying to scream at him or use harsh sounding words or what have you, or physically move him away, or I tried all different kinds of things. This is probably 6 months of the most frustrating thing to try and get that animal to change their behavior. I realized that my responsibility was that I had to start understanding where they were coming from. I had to start listening really clearly to what my dog was telling me. And it goes back to the very first thing. Am I perceiving this clearly? It had nothing to do with the fact that my dog was going to the bathroom inside. Had nothing to do with the condition of my carpet. He doesn't care about that. It had nothing to do with my deposit in my apartment. It had nothing to do with my worries about finances. It had nothing to do with the stink, or it had nothing to do with any of the thoughts that were going on in my head. He was just doing what he needed to do because he needed to go out to the bathroom. But I wasn't paying enough attention to know that he needed to go out far more often than I was willing to do. So I just became more willing to take him out more often, way more often. I would keep taking him out, even if he didn't have to go, until he had so many opportunities to take care of his business that he did it outside. And then finally I could rein it back in. The story isn't so much about the gate method as much as having patience to change behavior, to change and allow the proper time and space for a creature to develop, to make changes in their behavior, in their thinking. That's what happened to my dog. He finally got that. I don't think I convinced him. He just got more used to going to the bathroom outside than inside. He had more chances for that to be his way of being because I kept giving him that opportunity. And so if you know of somebody who is kind of struggling to develop emotionally, or develop in any way, really, I encourage you to have patience. You know, they might be just like a puppy in this regard, where they're just really used to doing things the way they do. But if we can give them the time and the space and the love and the compassion to make mistakes or be clumsy or be kind of immature for the time being, then they'll kind of grow and they'll develop. That's what I had to do with my child. That's what I had to do with my dog. That's what people had to do with me when I was learning this stuff. Does that make sense? Any other questions or comments, stories? Yeah.
Yeah, the other question I have is, let's say you go through this training and you understand, okay, these are the rules that the other person in the communication doesn't want to play by.
Which rules are you talking about?
Well, where you take ownership for your behavior, or ownership of your, communication.
Yeah.
They want to go back and derail you and go back into history, he said, she said.
Yeah.
Somebody like you might be communicating to somebody and the only payoff they'll accept is drama.
Right, right.
That's what they're living.
It's and it's a really painful situation to find yourself in. I hear you. And I found myself in that many, many times on both sides of the table. It's a great question. And the first thing I want to say is, there was a time when I was in a really dysfunctional relationship, and I was trying to find out what was my responsibility, how much of it was mine, because I was kind of convinced that it was all mine, but I also didn't want to own all of it. What a really good friend of mine said is, if that other person were healthy, they wouldn't have gotten in this relationship with you. They would have said, "You're nice, but no thanks." From a business perspective, okay, if I get a whiff of somebody now that they're going to pull some shenanigans business-wise, that's a red flag. Do I really want to do business with this person? Do I really want to engage in this type of commerce? That could be business, it could be friendship, it could be marriage, whatever. I can say that now from a place of believing that I'm pretty emotionally healthy. If I find myself in that situation, though, where I've already gone too far into it and I'm already engaged and it's just a lot of drama, how do I extricate myself out? Or how do I try and clean those things up? I don't change the rules, first off. Those rules absolutely apply because they only apply to myself. How am I going to behave? How am I going to take responsibility for my things? If I do everything I can to take care of my side of the street and the other person simply insists on just playing silly shenanigans, I have a choice. What am I getting out of this? really. If they're willing to engage and participate and collaborate, right, and build some cohesion in the community or in the relationship, cool, I'm in it. Let's work. Let's get this. Let's figure things out. Let's come to a clear understanding, and then we can go from there. But if they're not, why am I here? Why am I insisting on staying? That is my choice. It has nothing to do with the other person.
I had that situation with, actually it's two different people, but one person who's one of my best friends.
Yeah.
Went through a long process on a technical project, web development, and because he was such a good friend, I did a lot of work with him for over 6 months to bring him up to speed with
Yeah.
technology he was underway. And I can own my part, but there are people that believe that you have 100%. There is no disagreement where each party has a part.
Sure.
And so what I'm doing is I'm just been in a holding pattern for a long period of time because I can own my part. I don't have a problem. Unless I hear back that the other person is willing to own their part in whatever disagreement might exist, then there's no forward for me.
Sure.
There's no next project or new project.
Sure.
What am I supposed to do with this?
So what I would say to that is, just a suggestion, use the gate method. Talk to them face to face, like Rich suggested. And say, when I think about all this stuff that's been going on here, and the fact that you insist on me taking 100% of the responsibility of things, I feel really. What do you feel? What do you feel when that happens?
Well, what I feel is upstream, which is historical. But what I feel is that I can't communicate with you because I haven't heard you take ownership of your part of this agreement.
Cool.
I have no power to proceed.
I hear what you're saying. Do you mind playing a little bit?
All right?
I don't want to put you on the spot.
Right.
But what I would tell you is that the words that you just used are not feelings. They're thoughts. And that's something I wish I had put on the slides, but I didn't. A lot of people in this world, not just techies, not just you, mix up the use of thoughts and feelings. I feel like taking a bath. I feel like pizza. I feel like watching a ball game. Those are not feelings.
You're feeling underappreciated or not respected in the effort you're putting into the project.
Okay? Yes. Just shorten it up. I'm feeling underappreciated. I'm feeling disrespected. Those are feelings. What you followed up with then are the thoughts behind it because of all the work I did. Okay? So the feeling comes down to a single word. What's the name of that emotion that you're feeling?
Yeah.
So,
Unappreciated or disrespected, I think is probably.
cool. I
It's
feel.
a bit blunt.
I'm sorry?
It's a bit blunt.
Well, so.
I guess maybe what you're saying is that instead of the thinking response, the feeling response gets through.
For me, what I've come to
Can
understand.
be received.
It's true. What I've come to understand is that in order to have an authentic, transparent, and vulnerable relationship with another human being, I have to provide the emotional content. If I don't, then that's only one very intellectual part of this relationship that I'm having. And so maybe your partner does not realize how disrespected you feel. Maybe they don't realize how undervalued you feel. And until you communicate that really clearly, then you haven't taken full responsibility for your relationship. That make sense? Cool.
Sounds good.
Cool.
So I just wanted to add to that. I've had some experience in a similar situation, and I found that when I didn't take the patience to think about my emotions more and be honest with myself and understand them, I came back with reasons, with the underlying cause of, oh, it's because of this and this and this, and not just letting my emotion out and saying, I feel like this.
Yeah.
And you kind of make that bond with them, I think, in a way. They understand, oh, I'm affecting this person's emotion.
Right, right. And if you don't do that, then you're not contributing that part of the relationship. And then if the other person can't receive it, then you have to kind of like be patient, right? They might not be willing, they might not be able, they might be stuck in their own thing going on right then and there. Where they're too angry, you've got a choice. Are you more important or are they? And we can go on and on, because we're talking about relationships, we're talking about emotional development. This could go on for days and weeks. And it's a lot of fun for me. But anyway, do we have time?
So 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Any other questions? Comments? Stories? All right. Well, thank you all very much. I appreciate everyone sharing what they did. That was a lot of fun for me. So thanks.